2023 GR86, manufacture date February 23. What if I told you we found some big pieces of metal in the oil strainer right from the factory? Alright, so on the last visit, this car came in for a RTV inspection and oil change. He did the first oil change as part of the Toyota Care service, so our RTV inspection was on the second oil change. To our surprise, when inspecting the drained oil, we found long strings, at least a couple of them, of RTV in the drained out oil. I suggested to the customer, yeah, we actually might have an issue. Pretty typical with 2023s that we do the RTV inspection on. When we do find RTV in the oil, that usually doesn't correlate to the oil filter. When we cut open the oil filters on those, the filter media will be relatively clean. So to sum it up, on 23s, we'll find RTV in the drained out oil, but usually not inside the oil filter pleats. As you can see, we're still working on this guy. I got the oil pan back on, but not what I expected when I took off the oil pan. Immediately what I saw on the upper oil pan was this long piece of casting flash. I was kind of shocked. So just a little bit of a wiggle and that big piece of casting flash broke off. It's about a 40mm long piece. Looking inside the oil strainer, similar story. Excess RTV inside, but most concerning, there was actually two large pieces about the size of 2 pennies of some folded up casting flash stuck up inside the oil strainer. Alright, so here's our piece out of the upper oil pan. As you can see, there's 2 pieces of metal. I lost the other big casting flash piece, but you can see this guy has been folded over a few times, which means this broke off inside the engine and was running around, circulating through the engine and got folded over. Again, this is one of the oil strainer cleanings that was a lot more difficult, as all these little pieces I had to take out by hand, and then you don't know what piece is hiding in what crevice of that oil strainer. So very time consuming and labor intensive to clean this oil strainer out. If we look closely right here, it may be one of our old friends, Mr. Scotch Brite, that the color got bleached out of him, or maybe we made a new friend this time, but either way, there's this cotton or Scotch Brite textured thing that we pulled out. So out of all this, I think to sum it up, my biggest concern is the amount of casting flash that we found inside the engine. Does the engine block have a QC or manufacturing issue? Is it just the upper oil pan? Who knows, but all that casting flash should not be on those parts after the manufacturing process, and then whose job was it to QC those parts afterwards? There's going to be some pretty obvious issues if long pieces of metal are floating around inside your engine crankcase. Just a few examples: damaging or plugging internal engine components, getting stuck inside the oil strainer, as we saw. I don't know if it's obvious or not, but long pieces of metal shouldn't be floating around inside your engine. Yeah, I think the first thing on my mind when I saw the long piece of casting flash on the upper oil pan was, I'd probably ask the dealer for a buyback on this car, honestly, just because how do I feel confident as the owner of these engines, which have had problems thus far in this chassis? How can you tell me that there are not other quality control or manufacturing defects inside my engine when we pulled big amounts of metal out of it that were due to the manufacturing process? And just going down the slippery slope, right? If we did have an engine failure related issue with this car, just like the other engine failure cases we've had, the dealers have all considered them all abuse cases, right? Regardless of the scenario. In this instance, again, if we had a engine related failure issue with this car, how would you tell me there is abuse when obviously we have a factory manufacturing defect with the engine? All that stuff, all the RTV, those big pieces of metal are not supposed to be inside the engine. So how are you going to tell me? So on our channel, we've documented every oil pan drop and oil strainer cleaning we've done, regardless of if we found lots of RTV inside the oil strainers. You'll see some videos where we may have found only a little bit. The owner really probably could have gotten away with not doing the oil strainer cleaning. But the point I want to get across is the peace of mind, because the manufacturer and the dealerships can't for sure give you this peace of mind that no, there's not an issue with your particular vehicle. They have not been able to for sure tell us that. So again, worst case scenario, if this owner did not choose to do an RTV inspection, which led to him choosing to drop the oil pan to do the oil strainer cleaning, he would not have found the manufacturing defect with this engine until maybe it was too late. Who knows, right? Worst case scenario.